How much time have we got for questions?
So this is one further, it's an AC conference, and you finished significantly early.
Right.
So we have half an hour, which we can use for questions, or we can, I can see some hands go out, that's great, so maybe we'll fill up the questions. Okay, we'll fill the questions. But, Mary, do feel free to join in on this, actually. So any questions to Mary as well as Stephen. So I'll carry this to whoever wants to ask. So let's have some hands up then. Okay, I shall start here.
I'd just like to know what the role of waste products is in this.
Well, within agroecology, there's no such thing as a waste, you know. So we try to look at this idea of decontamination. So there's a lot of waste sewage and there's a lot of waste nitrates and things like that. So how can we build that in? So by looking at that, what plants are adapted, what can do that job? So we use the plants and particularly fungi. So it's called mycobioremediation. That's the most important thing. So all these wastes, you know, we shouldn't have any waste. Nature doesn't have any waste. It's a crazy human error. We need to examine that idea and think how we can reduce pollution, which is producing too much stuff anyway. So reduce it, use it sensibly in a way that will improve climate change resilience. So waste is an important thing. The most amazing thing about trees is that they actually thrive better on contaminated land, because they can manage what they're taking up, and it often reduces disease problems. So quite amazing, the two go together.
But at a neighbourhood or house level?
Right, okay. So basically it's all about, again, agroecological thinking. So in my street, I give away all my eggs. I have these wonderful chickens, very happy chickens in my forest garden. And I give them the eggs and then I say, can I have your waste? So very simple, practical things, because a waste to one person is an important resource to someone else, but doing it at a community scale with companionship, you know, so we actually go out looking for waste within our allotment group and forest garden group. It's not a waste to us, it's incredible, you know, and this magic things like green wood chips, that's incredible stuff, you know. That was a waste problem, and the landscape architects and landscape managers, what can we do with this, all this stuff from urban tree management? Well, we told them when to take it, because if it's got any green bits in it, it's unbelievable, because it's like a massive injection of mycorrhizae into the plants. So waste is very much a central part of climate change resilience, and what to do with it. It's about changing your attitude.
Do you want to say anything on waste, Mary?
Oh, yes, I have.
You don't need this.
I don't need it. I just want to say it's very exciting today because I've just been offered a pallet of black beans. So I am a black bean millionairess. We're really into the whole dead food stuff. You know, the whole ignoring of the dictate of government of how and when we should eat food. So, yes, and we're, as an organisation with no income coming in except what's given to us, our frugality has really helped us survive.
Be interested to ask more about how you do manage this type approach. Okay, another question perhaps from this side? Okay, Chris, just this once.
Thanks. Fascinating. I'm involved with a growing project for refugees as well as on the building side, and we're establishing a new project as well on fairly conventional organic sort of lines. So this is really interesting and followed up. But my question is around the this whole sort of tension with rewilding, and then I know George Monbiot has talked a lot about sort of maybe almost industrialising food to some extent, and then rewilding. Those sort of, all those tensions are what I'm interested in. How is, you know, I'm sure you've got plenty to say about that. interesting.
Yeah, all right. So again, the rewilding, the key idea within rewilding came from a completely different understanding of ecology. So before we used to think the plants on their own, we start off, if you clear a site, you get lots of herbaceous vegetation, and then the trees grow, the shrubs come in, then the trees. So the ideal environment is where the trees are in control, where a forest just grows up. Now we realise the most important thing are animals. So we use animals to rewild the area, to actually disturb the ecosystem, and that makes for a far better, more resilient forest. So that's the core of the rewilding agenda. And there's nothing to say we can't get food from that rewilding area, because the key thing is forage. And one of the most important things about the trees is that they're perennial, so we can forage. They look after themselves, they're low maintenance. So rewilding is great, and I don't see it as an either-or situation. We're not going to do crazy high chemical agriculture there, but we can still get food from those rewilded areas, because we're going to find oak, hazel, hawthorn, they're all there, so we can still gather the stuff, which is often more ecologically sound than cultivating the soil. What was the second point? Oh, so George Monbiot, yes. So we can have he's a character, isn't he? Yeah. So So we can industrialise our food, but who wants to? And it's the energy costs are incredible. So why not let nature do the vertical farming rather than have bioprocessors, swishing around fungi and all. Food is so much more than just stuff you ram down your throat. It's a media for kindness and community, the whole lot, and it's a landscape part. It's part of our heritage, it's part of our being, to feel that we're wandering through a landscape where we can forage or belong and get food. So to stick it in a factory is a bit bonkers as far as I'm concerned. But if you want to do it, do it. Yeah.
Okay, any more questions? I'm going to ask you about land ownership patterns at some point.
Yeah, right.
Okay, we'll start from the back.
Hi. I'm glad you mentioned animals, because
Yeah.
for me this is a big issue, because I have 100 hectares which I put 3,000 trees on, whatever. I like to grow stuff, fruit in particular, fruit trees. But then I have squirrels which will climb up the trees and eat stuff. And I have loads of hazel trees, and I had one hazelnut, squirrels are mad cleaner. And then the deer. The deer come in and they'll grab stuff off the tree, and grab a branch off the fruit tree or whatever. So it's a problem. I don't know how to solve it. I do know, incidentally, in Havana, big fan of that city, because they grow loads of food in the city. And they don't have that problem there, but I don't know how they solve it.
Okay.
I think it's good to ask about pests. The Martin Crawford's garden in Devon had to be fenced off against deer because there was an insufficient management plan in neighbouring estates, and it did devastate parts of his.
Yeah, so it's all about your perceptions, and once you've got those perceptions, what you can do about it. So for me, squirrels in the right place are fantastic. They're actually doing the rewilding. They take the oak, so they bury all the seed, and they're doing an incredible job rewilding. In a mast year, there's too much, and they leave it behind. So if squirrels are a problem, then there's two ways of looking at that. This is so there are two different universes. There's the problem universe, and there is the possibility universe. They're different things. So with squirrels, we run a walnut club where our greatest joy is to have barbecued squirrel. Absolutely delicious. It's one of the most underrated meats you could ever imagine. Marinated, we've got different competitions going on who can make the best marinade, but it's absolutely delicious. So I'm looking forward to joint ventures on squirrel sausages, squirrel burgers. Absolutely incredible. And it's so easy to put in the live traps and make sure the meat is fresh. Similarly with deer, as part of the Fountain Forestry empire, I set up the venison company, and deer are absolutely delicious, and there's so many of them. So if you want to then, if you don't want to kill them, if you don't like eating meat or whatever, then what can you do? Well, you can design the system to reduce the squirrels. So for walnut, the main product is green walnut for pickling. So we pick that in June. We make £12 a pound from that. That's there. The squirrels are not interested in the green walnut before the shell forms. In our silver arable system, where we're growing wheat between the walnut trees, quite wide. So squirrels, like chickens, do not like an open sky because that's where their predators are going to come from. So your squirrel will not like to run large distances between the rows of trees. If you plant your orchard your nut orchard very close next to a woodland, then you're an idiot because that's going to just get full of squirrels. So it's about thinking these things through, turning a problem into a solution. So, we always get the squirrel question whenever we talk about nuts.
I planted my cultivated walnuts close to the house, and the hazels and the railway line do get the squirrels, but the cultivated walnuts haven't attracted the squirrels, partly because the dog is actually only his keeper wants to go around, fencing the garden.
Yeah.
Martin also mentioned another nut, a bladder nut tree, which was where the squirrels haven't, I don't know how long it'll take them, but they haven't recognised the bladder nut as a nut.
Yeah. Then there's all come back to rewilding. There's now a lot of interest in bringing the pine marten back. And I think the red kite will switch soon. The red kite is supposed to be just interested in carrion, but a lot of them are not reading the books anymore. They're doing their own thing. So I think there'll be a lot more predators of grey squirrels during climate change.
Maybe anyone's interested in the best way to kill a squirrel would be best outside of this.
Yeah. There's no demo.
Interesting insight. Any more questions? Yeah. Okay. Is that you, Tim? Do you handle?
Hi, I live here, and I run the incredible farm, which is up on the tops, and I wonder if, Prof Newman, you've had a chance to look at the landscape and any observations about what's happening in agriculture and the town here, just to mention that historically everybody used to live up there, and it's only in the last 100, 150 years that on industrialisation that the town got built in the swampy valley, and that's why we have problems with floods and so on. I famously had a bit of a go at the Slow the Flow group in this room a while back, who were trying to prevent the floods and saying, look, actually we should be living up there. And I wonder if Stephen can make an observation about what we should be doing with this landscape.
Stephen was already making observations about this, so I didn't share those.
So what people might not be aware of is the fact that Ebeneezer, Howard and a lot of the early town planning visionaries actually came from the agricultural background or looked at it. The country part of town and country planning was absolutely critical. So I went for a walk this morning, had a wonderful Indian breakfast, so it was like home from home, had masala dosa, and then I walked all the way down to Calder Park, across the hills, and some crazy things have been going on here. So an amazing flood scheme that's actually shifted the problem to Hebden Bridge and move the flood down to every neighbouring town. So the whole solution is staring you in the face, in terms of flood management. So you need to use trees and the right livestock to improve percolation and stop runoff. You need to build a proper bioengineering embankment that's farmed, that's full of food, which is what we're doing in Bangladesh, agroforestry embankments. And you keep the water back. You don't put it through sluices and release it. You release it at the right time and you get hydropower from it. And the agriculture is all built around the hydropower and is designed with that in mind. Now, in terms of feeding people, the upland sheep is an absolutely ridiculous system, really. You're only going to get up, you 0.1 of a person per hectare if you're lucky. So we need to augment that. The sheep have a role and need to stay there as agents of rewilding, actually, if they're managed properly. So we want to have silvopastoral systems. And the most important thing about animals is that they actually tell us what to do. I was not allowed to bring my dog to this thing. She is, I learn so much from my dog every day. And I came to the realisation of having a dog and keeping pigs, that the reason humans are in such a predicament is that we're actually senseless. So we all know about the software error. If you put two people, one person might be wise, but if you put a group of people together, there's an emergent property, there's like a software error, and things go crazy. So we know about, profound mental problems of humans, but I suddenly realised that we're senseless. So my dog, I'm training to get truffles, so she's already got a few truffles. They have 5,000 times a greater sense of smell than we do. So by looking at the way they see the world, we're actually able to perceive things and contemplate nature in a far stronger way. A pig has 5,000 times more powerful sense of smell than a dog. So what kind of world does the pig live in? So the pig should have told us that humans have gone wrong a long, long time ago, because they could smell all the volatile organic compounds given off by the plants that are telling us we're in the shit. So if we learnt from pigs, we'd be a lot better off. So also the pigs, and if you want to stop scab and powdery mildew in a fruit orchard, the best thing to do is have a pig or a sheep to rapidly eat all the fallen leaves, because that's the overwinter, where that's a host for the disease. So animals play an incredible part, if only we could perceive what they're doing and understand their role. We just treat them as, in a very bad way at the moment. So we can design agroforestry for, there's a tree planting target in Calder District Council, 3 million trees. Well, we can do incredible edible linked to 3 million trees. We can use all that resource. We can change the whole of the agricultural landscape for the better and improve social outcomes by doing that. So the animals are extremely important, but we need to think very carefully what role they take within the system. And we need to look after them. I've got very happy hens, and again with people when they come round and I've got volunteers working on the allotment, and animals are a great thing for healing, well-being. If I want to meet people in the village and form, and show kindness and community, more people will come to me when I've got my dog. So animals are a great way of breaking down barriers and getting people to meet each other. Very therapeutic. So we need to look at agroecology in a far broader sense, in the way that we do in Bhutan, which is to look at well-being and happiness.
Kate and then Ben.
Thanks, cheers. Yeah, so I'm kind of interested just to pick some brains around exemplar or
Yes.
research-based projects.
Yes.
So if you were kind of setting out to bring a kind of a holistic aim out of all that you've learned in all of your years in agroforestry, what would your kind of ideal setup be? So we've, for instance, been looking at kind of purchasing land and purchasing assets, and we're kind of a food and power-based combination or companion, and the food being kind of agroforestry-led. We were looking at a lot of forestry products, you know, so the expansion of forestry products in the construction industry is absolutely massive. And a huge portion of what everything in this room will be doing will be building with these products. So we're looking at kind of having outputs into construction, but also outputs in food, and the whole kind of farm to fork stuff, so you know, diversification. I'm just kind of interested, you know, the scale. So we were looking at kind of our kind of numbers looked at about 500-600 acres being the minimum size necessary to kind of get something like that off the ground. Typically like 100 acres or so of woodland already existing, so that you can go into a continuous cover and bring the new forestry into being, but that you've got something to get cracking with immediately, and you can do thinning and move that 100 acres into it. So I'm just kind of like trying to evolve this idea and get as much going before we essentially invest and kick it.
Yeah, so there's two dimensions to the exemplar. The first is, how can we feed ourselves with a minimum footprint? So to do that, we're going to need to crop the vertical dimension. And what does that mean? How does that affect animals and plants and everything else? So that's one system. Then the other system is we need to get rid of this government. Because it's completely lost the plot. We need to look at governance. Governance is a different word to government. It's about the rules of the game. What are the rules of the game as manifested by the power structures that we have at the moment? So I'm actually involved in a project to recreate rural rides of William Cobbett. He went along on his horse, he got fed up, and was reflecting on democracy and corruption in 1823. Well, where are we in 2023? Well, he was complaining about compensation to the slave trade and the corruption that was, because actually the slave owners got the compensation, not the slaves. So you take the numbers then, and then you look at the corruption in the PPE thing, you know. So there's 20 billion lost during the PPE production due to slightly dodgy procurement. That's official figures. You know, dodgy procurement in my language is corruption. So how are we going to do that? Well, Ebeneezer Howard had the idea, which is to create a state within a state. So this is the peaceful path to real reform. So what we do is buy 1,000 acres of rural land at rural land prices. So that's £10,000 a hectare. No, £20,000 a hectare. Probably cheaper in this area, a lot cheaper. These are Kent prices. We then recognise once that's got development potential, right, once we've got planning permission, it's worth 2 million. So this is called the land betterment increment. And even Winston Churchill was complaining about the unearned increment. Who is going to take that value? Why is that development land worth so much more? It's because of the good people in the town. The good people in the town have made it an attractive place to live. The farmers or landowners have done nothing to get that land betterment value. So, he said, Ebeneezer Howard said, buy 5,000 acres in Letchworth and we'll build on 1,000. Well, I did this spreadsheet model, which I call NIMBY 1. Because I knew the NIMBYs wouldn't like it. So I then said, what's the minimum development footprint to build on to make it financially viable? So we're trying to come up with an exemplary financial model? Well, we build on 30 acres, 800 dwellings for about 2,400 people. And we look at the rental yield from those dwellings and also the agricultural land as well, and how we can work as a community to maximise it for the benefit of the community, not for some absentee landlord. So what does it mean, these 800 dwellings? Well, the idea is nobody's going to pay rent. There's going to reach a vanishing point, but we've got to start somewhere. So you've got the poor people. We don't want them to pay any rent. So how are we going to do that? We've got 800 dwellings. Well, we stick a garden centre there. In Milton Keynes, we sold the licence for a garden centre for £1 million. So you might want a hotel with a small footprint. So what's the yield per unit area of a building? Portfolio management. So we've got so much money per unit area in this hotel, we can then let all these low-cost houses rent-free forever. So we do that, this financial model, Howardian economics, it's all in the spreadsheet. And when we get past the vanishing point, which is when we've paid off the loan of 96 million, this is the scale we need to operate at, peanuts as far as most major funders are concerned, we get an annual rental yield of 11.3 million. And what do we do with that 11.3 million? It's gone into the Community Commonwealth Fund. We now dictate to the state what our relationship is to the state. So health service. Oh, we like your doctors over there, but the hospital's crap. We'll now build our own hospital, thanks, and our relation to the state is we'll use your doctors. That school building over there you've got as the state's all right, but your teachers are crap. So we'll move in our own teachers. Every element of life is a negotiated position with the state. And I say that in inverted commas because the state at the moment is so eroded and perverse, it's unbelievable. So this is going back to the drawing board and saying what you actually want with a clear vision, which is what Ebeneezer Howard did. So we're using rental yield as the same in Milton Keynes Development Corporation. We had incredible ideas for green infrastructure. Still there now. We had grazier licenses, 1,000 acres at a time just to graze the grass within the city. How the hell is that going to survive when we hand it back to the state, when we move back from Milton Keynes Development Corporation to Buckinghamshire County Council? How the hell is that going to survive given the politics that go on? So we give them an endowment. We give them a rental portfolio. So the Milton Keynes Parks Department have so many offices in Milton Keynes Town Centre where they collect the rent. So just like Mary's abhorrence of a project, we don't want any project money. I think that's very wise because you end up playing the tune rather than your own tune. Forget that. You need to be in control of the money. So the community has its own rental portfolio and it's their money to be invested back into the community the way they see fit. So these are the two exemplars. The profitable development, green carbon, climate change resilience. What is the financial and governance model for it? That's at the scale of the new forest villages or new forest towns, 1,000 acre plus. And the agroecology is basically the discovery of the vertical dimension, that we don't need to spread ourselves out with inefficient, polluting agriculture. We can concentrate in a careful way and have more people supported per unit area if we look at it out of the way of the crazy value chain system, which is the dominance of the feed suppliers, the distributors and the supermarkets. This is a sick, corrupt system. This is a model that is no longer tenable. And we learned that from COVID, so we know that that's not tenable anymore. If I was a commercial chicken producer instead of looking after my happy girls, I would have to sign a contract that I will get with Noble Foods. I will have to get my chicken feed from this lot, full of soya and everything else. It has a tremendous forest footprint. I would have to sell through this distribution system. Ridiculous use of transport, ridiculous use of, it's polluting system. And I get this crazy price from the supermarket. And there's nothing going back to the community. So we need to look completely again at value chains as well, and how agriculture can serve the community. So they can deal with our waste, they can deal with our wastewater, and by giving them our waste, we can charge them more rent. By having a community commonwealth fund, we can give them cheap access to capital. So there's an incredible synergy between agriculture and buildings. It's not something with a NIMBYs, it's not this blooming, green belt. What a ridiculous idea that is. It's the green life jacket. It is the green life jacket. Without it, we're not going to survive. The urban form is not enough. We do need the green life jacket.
Okay, thank you to Mary and Stephen. The revolution starts here.